Hello, beautiful community. I have just watched Carlson's interview with Putin, and I've broken it down for us in an 8-tweet thread. That'll mean we'll get through this pretty quickly. I'm going to leave out all the details. I'm going to focus on the broad brushstrokes of what's really significant about what went down. So strap yourselves in. Let's go. The interview was a flop for Carlson and Putin, or a limited success. A productive concept, a destructively productive concept, poorly executed. Now, narratively, the 2-hour interview broke down into 3 parts. There was a half-hour-long history lecture by Putin. Then there was perhaps an hour of Putin going on about how he is a victim of the West and how Western leaders have tricked him over and over and over. And then there was perhaps about half hour on how us in the West mistreating Russia is self-destructive for us. History lecture first. It was bad. I mean, it was bad by Putin's standards. He was compulsive about all the dates that he had memorized. 892, 988, 1922. And he kept pulling out historical dates and just clinging on to them for dear life. And when Carlson tried to move the conversation on, Putin couldn't bear it. It was too much for him to snap out of this compulsive fetish making that he got himself increasingly caught up in. Now, this process has been going on since what I've called his missionary turn, somewhere between 2010 and 2014. And then all of this got consolidated and dramatized during his period of isolation from about 2020 up until the beginning of the war. I rarely laugh at the tyrant, but I just laughed uncontrollably on about minute 18 of the interview. And what this was a human being ludicrously victimized by his own unfiltered power. It was just so much a sort of farcical, self-imposed prison that he was in. Then came Putin's perennial victimhood. This part was mildly revealing. The central thread was Putin's sincere astonishment at what he sees as the utter hypocrisy of Western elites and the sham that he thinks Western ideals turn out to be in practice. Putin's ask here is clear. Can we please do politics without ethical pretense? Can we stop pretending there's a difference between authority and power? And can we stop pretending that small countries have sovereignty? And Putin said very revealingly, we won't invade Latvia because we don't have an interest in it. Neither Latvia nor Ukraine have sovereignty, but the difference is that we have an interest in Ukraine and we don't have an interest in Latvia. Today, they don't. And I think there is something else here too that it's not in the thread, and that is Putin's conviction about the ultimate corruptibility of Western political elites. I've managed to corrupt some of them. I haven't corrupted the others, and that's just because of their own stupidity. And this conviction about the corruptibility of Western elites and this astonishment at the hypocrisy of Western elites has a lot of pathology to it. I mean, Putin pathologically struggles, for instance, with the concept of opponents. He always thinks that opponents are really enemies. And the difference is, of course, that a relationship of opposition is a relationship of cooperation to some extent. And the relationship of enemies isn't, winning the tennis match versus trying to beat somebody up with a tennis racket. But don't think that Putin doesn't have a point here. It's a very significant question to ask. How far is an absence of an adequate international order, and how far is the degree to which Putin indeed managed to corrupt Western elites to some degree? How much is that not a revelation of the fact that Putin is just an extreme version of the forces that are anyway out there shaping the international order? That's to say, he's not just out to break whatever is left of an international order. He is, in fact, a revelation, an intensification of things that are actually wrong with it. So that's Putin as an extreme phenomenon, but not as a unique phenomenon. Finally, Putin appealed to the West to stop being self-destructive. And this was a big missed opportunity. A good strategist would have told Putin to drill down. Westerners, your politicians are your enemies and your institutions are betraying you. And it just didn't happen. It just didn't go there. I regularly speak about democracy with a Western audience. I wonder who that audience is. It's the beautiful community. And yeah, I mean, I could have made Putin's speech 10 times more destructive, Putin's commentary 10 times more destructive than it was. It's clear what he needed to say to impact the 2024 US election. But he just failed to deliver. He didn't engage with Western citizens' feeling of unsafety, powerlessness. Powerlessness is worse than unsafety. Betrayal. Betrayal is sometimes worse than powerlessness, sometimes isn't. And opacity in the face of their political institutions. Unsafety, powerlessness, betrayal, opacity. That's the big thing. Opacity is worse than betrayal, worse than powerlessness, certainly worse than feeling of unsafety, because that's when politics ceases to make sense to you. You look at it and it's like an ill-assorted combination of different sports games. You're seeing, and we've milked this analogy before, but you're seeing cricket bats, soccer balls, tennis rackets, and none of it makes any sense, which makes it tempting to just take the whole thing and just throw it out. And Putin left these deep sentiments that are to some extent ubiquitous, but they're particularly concentrated in Tucker Carlson's audience. He left them unengaged. He delivered on about 5% of the 100% he could have exploitatively delivered on in this interview. That's my take. Lots of love, and see you very, very soon here and on the main channel as well.